anyone have any advice out there for making sure these necklaces don't run around your neck? They go, they take off and go different directions and they never stay in place. They always just leave where I put them. I want them just to stay there. Do I have to just kind of glue them down or something? Or tape them down? Or what? I don't know. Let me turn this thing down. That. Okay. So, how's everyone doing today? This is Cassandra Williamson coming to you from way up in Holler in eastern Kentucky. And we've got a few things to talk about today. There's been a lot of stuff happening over the weekend and last week that we need to kind of address quickly. I'm coming to you early today. Ordinarily, it's around 1-ish, noon sometime, somewhere. It's, I don't know, what time is it right now? 12, almost 12 Eastern time, which means it is 9 Pacific time. So you're actually brunch time on the West Coast, and 8 o'clock in Alaska. Okay, so wherever you might be tuning in from, thank you so much. We appreciate it. And so here's the topics for the day. I want to talk about, the first thing is Friday afternoon during our 6 o'clock show, I had a good friend, a very good friend of mine, someone I respect greatly, on the program. Two, actually, two good friends. One of them is Lou Andamati, who's from the Naval Academy with me. We graduated together, and I'm so glad that she was able to come out and participate, be there, and listen in, and get her 2 cents in, 3 cents, 4 cents, whatever it is. Probably for me, it's worth $200 or $300 at least, maybe more. But then I had another friend in too by the name of Angela Brightfeather, who happens to be one of the co-founders of the Transgender American Veterans Association, of which I was a leader at one time, executive director, as well as a director for research and VA engagement, stuff like that. So that was a few years back, and but Angela wanted to make sure that I understood. We talked for 30 minutes and had a good conversation. I'm very glad for that, and I'm glad that she and her family are doing well, as can be expected, and so I'm very thankful. Angela's a good person at heart, a good person. But then around halfway through the program, she decided to tell me about how she and other people feel about my going after trans people who are being buttholes. And I don't mind doing that. If there's some people out there in this community who are absolutely drawing so much attention to themselves that it gets picked up on the right and used as a weapon against all of us. And I know that it's just a handful of people, but those handful of people cause a lot of trouble for all the rest of us. For instance, you don't take your top off at the White House, Rose Montoya. And oh my God, that just got all over me. And whenever that occurred, I just thought, this is crazy. She's not a veteran, but she is a trans person, and she went there and then took her top off there, and you don't do it. But then a corollary to that is, in one of the competitions, the college level competitions where you had trans people participating in the sport, and they were initially part of the women's swim team as a trans woman on the women's swim team. And then, but they told her she couldn't do that anymore. So then they said that she had to go over and participate with the men. Well, she did. And all the men there don't wear tops. They just wear trunks or whatever, the Speedo things they got on at the bottom. So she took her top off. Now, that's a different case, though. That, to me, that was a different situation entirely, because she had been told that that's where she needed to be, and then because of whatever ideology, it's not about the science, it's not about the biology, but that's, she did that, and that's fine. I'm good with that, because she was making a good statement about the craziness of that rule. Now, I will say this, and I've said it many times before, I'm going to piss a lot of people off with some of the things that I say. But I'm going to piss people off on the left and the right and in between and everywhere else. And that's just fine with me, because my goal is to call balls and strikes when they occur and how they occur and what I can do about them and how you should think about them, maybe, if you want to. It's up to you. but I want to present these different ways of thinking about things. And one of them is that we've got to start policing ourselves so that we can actually engage with people on a rational basis, at least in some way that makes sense for them and us. And so whenever Angela decided to call me an apologist on Friday's show, well, then I don't think she really meant an apologist in that sense. What she meant was that she thought that I was apologizing for bad behavior. And no, I'm not going to apologize for bad behavior. I'm not going to apologize for trans people. Trans people are who they are, and they've always been who they are, and it's not going to change no matter how many people try to say otherwise. They've been around long before most of the religions on the planet have been around. And yes, that is true. You can check it. It's there. But anyway, so she calls me an apologist, but she meant apologizing for, but that's not what an apologist is. An apologist is someone who actually defends something, or an ideology, or a way of thinking, or a faith, or religion, or, yeah, like the Christian apologists of the 2nd century AD, who were refining their views of Jesus Christ. And that is what they were doing. They were refining and defining him and making a story about him 2 centuries, well, a century and a half after the fact, and trying to make the story more rational and acceptable. And that's what they did. And that became the basis for who Christians are today. Okay, so those original apologists actually set the stage. Now, there have been apologists all along the way, all kinds of different ways of thinking about it, from different books, different views, different perspectives, different verses that they think are important and the other ones aren't, all these kind of things. That's always going to occur. Anytime you have 2 people standing next to each other, they're going to have different opinions on the same darn material. So, but there's also other types of apologists. Well, let me just say this. There are apologists in the world today who are religious apologists. There's apologists for Muslim, apologists for the Hindu faith, Benai faith, the Vedic literature, the Vedic belief systems, the Christian faith, the Jewish faith, the Catholic faith. I mean, there are apologists for all of them who defend those things and write eloquently about their defense of them. They don't take time to talk to each other, though. That's the crazy part. But also we have a more relevant example of this, too, that's within the history of the United States, besides the fact there are Christian apologists all the time here today, each believing that they have the way and the only way of thinking and believing in God or Jesus or whatever. They believe they have a license to go that way with it as they so choose, and they take that and run with it and become what are called apologists for the faith, their version of the faith. But Jefferson Davis was also an apologist, the president of the Confederacy. After the war was lost, he became a very strong defender of not slavery, but the lost cause and the heritage of the Confederacy. So what he was trying to do was manipulate the narrative so that people would begin to think of the Civil War as something about lost cause or lost heritage or lost history. And the fact, and what he said was that there was a net benefit for people who were slaves during the lost cause, but Gone with the Wind was false. It was just a made-up story. It was never like that for the people who were slaves. I don't know if you know that or not. But anyway, so this is what we're facing, are apologists like that who want to change the narrative. Now, look, I defend, as I said a minute ago, I defend the right of trans people to exist, LGBT people to exist. I defend the right for you to exist and to believe whatever you want to believe, period. But that same level of respect comes back to me and what I believe too, right? I have the right to believe what I want. And the part of the challenge is that each side says the other is shoving their views down somebody's throat. Well, I have a suggestion for both sides on that issue. Close your darn mouth. Close your darn mouth. We're here. You're here. Live and let live, period. Just live and let live. Just go with it. And if your good book says something differently, the problem was with your book. That's the problem. Pick a different one. Shoot. I mean, I can pick out all kinds of books that would be good. I don't know, Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina or anything like that. Pick out one of those. Or I don't pick an Ayn Rand book or an Ayn Rand book. Pick one of those if you like Fountainhead or, you know, any of those things. Or go pick up something that Edgar Allan Poe wrote. But whatever, or Ernest Hemingway and the Pink Elephant. That's the one you ought to pick. It's short and you can actually do something with it. But I know that one person read it and they'll have a different opinion, another person read it and they'll have another opinion, and they'll argue and fight, and in 2 centuries you'll have a religion about it. Yep, that's the way it works. So anyway, so I'm not an apologist in that sense. I don't apologize for behavior. Now, if somebody on the right is doing something stupid, I'll call it out. If somebody on the left or in the trans community is doing something asinine and stupid, I will call that out too. I will call balls and strikes, period. That's the way I am. That's the way I will always be. But you have the right to believe how you want. Just don't come knocking on my door, because I'm not going to open it for you. Okay? Then I'm not going to come knocking on your door. So just leave it at that. Now I know that everybody's saying, but Pride Month there's a lot of stupid stuff during Pride Month and then during Pride parades. For instance, a friend and I were just talking maybe 30 minutes ago, and what the heck is a furry? Anybody? I had some furries running around once. I usually step on them. This is crazy. Okay, if you are on a leash like a dog going through a pride parade, that is just plain dumb. Dumb. Oh my God. And I know it happens. I have seen it. I was in Orlando for the Orlando Pride 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm going to tell you, I saw stuff there that I never imagined I would ever see anywhere. And I will tell you this too, there were some people on these floats and things who had nothing on that was worth even calling a piece of cloth. I wouldn't want my kids and grandkids around any of that. Why would you expect anyone else to do that? Yes, I'm going to call that stuff out because I think it is wrong, morally and ethically wrong. Drag queens reading to kids and wherever they read stories to. Look, a drag queen is a performance art, but it's also very lewd and lascivious. I know that. I've seen that. I know what it is. I've seen it in places you would not imagine. Because I did travel the whole country a number of years ago. I traveled all over the place and visited all the lower 48 states and visited most of the VA medical facilities in the country. Got to talk with leadership and got to participate in different activities. Particularly during Pride Month or around Pride Month, I got to do a lot with them as a spokesperson for transgender veterans. And I was doing it for the organization that Angela had founded 20-some years ago, the Transgender American Veterans Association. So I was traveling around the country by myself in my car. I ended up crashing up in Ohio. And totaled my little yellow Fiat. It was slick, okay? It was rainy, and I kind of spun out of control and hit the guardrail. So anyway, my point is this. I've been around. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've been around the block. I've got kids and grandkids, and I've got some grandkids who are graduating from high school now and getting ready to go into college and stuff like that, and it's just crazy. There's some things I don't want them to participate in, but it's not my choice. As they are an adult, as they grow and become adults and mature on their own, they've been taught in the right ways. They've been taught to be accepting of people and not to threaten people and not to challenge their right to exist. Every one of my grandkids and my 4 children all accept the fact of who I am. I gave them the option of what to call me. Dad, granddad, Cassandra, just didn't matter. And I'm not going to badger anyone over the freaking head for using the wrong pronouns, or even right here. I'm in Eastern Kentucky right now, and the reason for it is I came here to be a caregiver for my family who needed me. I'm retired. I'm the oldest of 6. We had a great family life together. And now I have the chance to take care of my mom and brother and sister and to help out with my cousin. I was asked to come back to do that, and that's what I'm doing. I am here in my brother's home as their caregiver, but also as a family member. And yes, they all listen to Fox. It's Fox News everywhere. As a matter of fact, they're all Trump voters. And I don't care. It doesn't bother me that they are. I'm glad that they made the choice to go vote, period. I disagree, but that's fine. They know I disagree, but it's all in fun. It's all in fun. My sister, who is disabled and has to be around in a wheelchair and all that, she loves Trump stuff like I don't know what. So when I was traveling through Tennessee, going to my granddaughter's graduation in Texas this past summer, when I came back, drove by a Trump superstore. It's on I-40 down there at the interchange with I-40 and 75. And so that Trump superstore, it was just so funny for me. But anyway, so I go in and I find a hat for my sister that says Trump on the front, and I go in and I find a shirt for my brother that has Trump on that, and I find a pair of shorts for my sister that had Trump, and I found for another sister and who lives about 20 miles or so from here, I got a gold colored $50 bill with Trump's face on it, because I know they all support Trump, and I don't mind. It doesn't hurt me at all that they do. I know that Trump's actions against us and the trans community is absolutely atrocious. Absolutely atrocious. I know that in the VA with Secretary Collins at the top of it right now, we are facing a challenge with this man, because Friday afternoon, he's sitting on a live video. He's making a live video, and he says, if you're a transgender veteran who is currently receiving care in the VA system, and you've earned that care, and the local VA that's supposed to be taking care of you is not doing that, Secretary Collins, Doug Collins, said, give him a call and he will come and walk with you through that VA to make sure you get the care that you've earned. And that makes sense to me. That's a rational response because, as he said, it's medically necessary. You're on the care. You're already being taken care of by the VA system, which is, I'm one of those people, okay? And so I appreciate that from him. However, the next thing he said was, but if you are a new enrollee in the VA system who happens to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, we will not take care of you. Now, there is an intellectual and rational disconnect with that. That is hypocrisy on the extreme level, okay? To be able to say, this is true as a medical thing, you get the care because you've been getting it already. But these new people coming in diagnosed with it who are coming out of active duty service, going into VA care or whatever, we're not going to take care of them. And then people have the gall to tell me that, it's not a service-connected disability. I know it's not a service-connected disability. I get care through the VA because I'm a veteran. And I do get pay from the VA because I have PTSD as a result of MST. So those are the facts, folks. And he acknowledges it's medically necessary, but at the same time, not going to give it medically necessary care to people coming out of active duty getting care at the VA now. That's don't you see how wrong that is? That's horribly wrong, period. Wrong. And then people were telling me that it's not service connected. Well, no, it's not service connected, but neither is if I walk into my local VA, which is 70 miles away in Huntington, West Virginia. If I walk into my local VA and I've got wheel myself into the local VA and I have a broken foot, and obviously it's not service connected. I mean, I'm 66 years old, okay? So obviously it wouldn't be service connected. But I walk into the VA, you think for a minute that I can get that fixed at the VA, or because it's not service connected that I ought to go somewhere else? No, the VA takes care of the veterans. Where they are, takes care of their families, too, survivors and children. especially if they are they're getting like 100% disability or something along those lines. I forget what it is, the actual number. But the point is this: when something is medically necessary, the VA takes care of it, regardless of whether or not it was service connected. For me, they don't take care of dental work. And that's the way the law is written, and I'm fine with that. I get my dental work on my own somewhere else, okay? But here's the thing. Everything else, audiology, these glasses, everything, they take care of. And that's none of that service connected in the sense that something happened while I was on service that causes me to need glasses. No, it's because I'm getting older, my vision's going. So when they test my vision in the optometry department and find that I need glasses, they prescribe them, they give them to me, they make sure I have a pair of glasses. They would fix a broken foot. They would fix, I mean, if you walk in and you have some kind of sexual dysfunction, erectile dysfunction or something like that, guess what? Most times that's not service connected. Sometimes it is. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it is, particularly if it's associated with PTSD. And they'll give you the Viagra you need to be able to live your life fully. But yet, a trans person coming out of active duty is refused the medically necessary care that even Doug Collins acknowledges is medically necessary, particularly for those who are actually currently receiving that care through the VA. So there is a huge disconnect between rational thought and thinking in this administration right now. They're going after trans people all over the place. They're going through and trying to clean house in academia to get rid of the woke virus and all that kind of stuff. But do you know something? If you look back the past 100 years in this country, or go back 100 years, it's the 20s, 1920s. You know what was going on in the 1920s and 30s? Well, obviously the Great Depression started in 29, okay? But there were colleges and universities in this country who were strongly opposed to the military's recruiting habits and practices on campuses, and people were protesting that. There were anti-Semitic protests as well. And then come World War II, when the Jewish people in Germany and Austria decided that they needed to get out of there, guess what the United States told them? No, we can't have you over here. And it took a lot of cajoling to get the United States to accept refugees from Germany because of the anti-Semitism in this country. It's not new. But what happened was, after the war and all of that, and then we started seeing some cultural enlightenment come along, and we started seeing peace, and we started gaining in liberties and freedoms from different people. And then the government kicked out 20,000 LGBT people out of the federal government under the Lavender Scare because security risk. The lamest thing I've ever heard. But they did. They kicked 20,000 of them out of the federal government then. And then after, they were tired. The conservatives got their little high on that one, and then they just went out and they did the biggest, flashiest thing they could possibly do, and they restructured the federal government and then sought to control the universities too, because they accused the universities of being, taken over by the liberal mindset, by the socialist and Marxist, by the eugenicist. Now, they were taken over by eugenicists, that's for sure, in the 30s. Germany came by it honestly. It came by it from us, because we export all of our stupidity most of the time. We're doing it again today with Viktor Orban and the people in Africa. But anyway, so I digress. Phew. So here's the thing, though. The conservative or Republican reset, it's a result of how some on the right perceive their freedoms being threatened by people shoving their ideas down their throat. It's happened in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000, and 2020s. Yes, still happening. But the thing is, it comes with a flash. And every time, you can look at it, every time, conservatives overplay their hand. They go at it like a bull in a china shop. They go smash everything they can, destroy everything, try to reset academia, reset the federal government, destroy agencies, remove rules and regulations, all of that kind of thing. And that's what we have going on today. It's nothing new, folks. We've seen this act before. And usually what happens is the people get so frustrated and numb to the rapid chaos that comes out of all of this stuff. But the people on the right are rejoicing. They're going, yay, we get to change it all back. We get to fix it, restore the greatness of our country. But they don't remember, apparently, that these things are cyclic. Every time they've done it, they've gone in and tried to destroy it all so fast and so rapidly that the country gets tired of it. And the country just goes, let's slow down and go back. And then what happens is all those rights that the right tried to remove during their flash in the pan attempt at reset, well, they all come back slowly. They all come back at the end. That's the hope part. They all come back at the end. And then they get a little bit more. And then they push a little bit more. And then the conservatives get mad again. And they go, we're going to reset the country. We've got to take control of academia. We've got to take control of the government and get all these liberal wackadoodles out there, out of these things, and take control of them again. Because educated people tend toward liberalism. The country tends toward liberalism. It's kind of an emergent property. An emergent, you know what emergent is? Something that increases, but just barely enough to increase. Emergent, out of complexity science. Anyone? No, no. Yeah, I know a lot of crap. So, anyway, I just wanted to get all that stuff out there to you. There's been a lot that I wanted to talk about. I covered most of it. There was one other thing that took place over this weekend, and that was the Federal Trade Commission is trying to claim that gender-affirming care is false advertising. The only problem with their conference that they had, where all these people spoke, is that they had no one there who actually understood gender-affirming care or transgender science, for that matter. Everyone there was opposed to it. So the solution that we have to start pushing on this country and on academia and social sciences and psychological sciences, we cannot build our stories on a foundation where that foundation consists of only things that we have done ourselves and not brought in people who are actually opposed to these things, who have different perspectives on them. We need to have an adversarial type of collaborative research or studies or any kind of thing, really, groups, that adversarial collaboration with some respectful guidelines brings in other views, and everyone has to agree, basically. And the way it works is, basically, you have to agree up front as to what you're going to study. You agree up front that you'll accept the results, whether they go with your particular view or not, or partially or whatever. All parties have to agree to that. You actually go ahead and precondition or pre-accept or pre-post with journals who will allow you to do this, that the results will be published openly in that journal, regardless of the results. And this is the best type of peer review that you could possibly do with an academic research project. Any kind, whether it's social science or psychology. It's used in a lot of different fields, but a weak form of it would be the Delphi method that Rand Corporation created back in the 50s. It's red teaming, Delphi method, and you got the adversarial collaboration method. But if you want to read more about all this stuff, if you want to see more about it, go over to my website, go here, and check out the website. Go to the blog page. Go to the section that's on adversarial collaborative framework. Go there. Check that out. There's a lot of stuff in there. And we need to do more of that. We don't need to be shutting people out because they disagree with us. We need to bring those people in and have a decent conversation, and then maybe we'll be able to move forward in a better, more sustainable way, rather than constantly being at loggerheads with each other. What the Federal Trade Commission did was wrong, but so is what the World Professional Association of Transgender Health did, WPATH. And all the people there on those groups that were writing the new policy for care, they had no person on there that actually disagreed with the care for trans people. And you need that to have something sustainable that can stand the test of time. And that's the challenge that we all face, is that it is hard to hear other people disagree with us, so we don't include them. That's called being in an echo chamber. You need to find ways to get out of your echo chamber and be heard and be seen and be involved in things that, you don't have to accept, but at least you can entertain the idea that somebody else does believe that. And that's fine. That's how you make things sustainable. And with all of that, the hope is this, that this long tunnel that we're in right now, this long, long tunnel that we're in, there is a flicker of light at the end of it. That flicker of light is the hope that this flash in the pan will end, that this reset will end, but you have to know that what comes in between the two conservative bumps, or any conservative reset period, is a long period of liberal takeover, basically, of the entire system again. It always happens. This time is no different. Have a great day. I'll see you at 6.